Hey everybody, Super Squee here, the emotionally unstable gamer channel on YouTube. Still being quiet, still late at night, people sleeping. Let's jump in. Like, how the fuck? Just fuck. Ugh. I feel like you can tell these games, this and the first game, were made for handheld so hard. Because they just have this gameplay loop that reminds me of the never-ending grind of a mobile game. I really don't like the gameplay loop, and lost my place, was picking a hair off my phone. Sorry. I really don't like the gameplay loop, and I do not like the RPG elements in what's essentially a fighting game. Like, I don't want to grind in my whoop-ass game. I love the concepts here, and I love the interaction between the characters from different games. But it just isn't my jam, and isn't enough to keep me invested. Also, the game legit has the first game built into it, so if you really want to play this one, don't buy Dissidia first, just get this one, because it's a more complete experience. I hope that the sequel to this changes enough combat-wise that I enjoy it. I hear a lot of bad things about Dissidia NT, but I look forward to checking it out. I enjoyed my viewing of this film to an extent. I just personally feel like they expected it to be great just because Bowie is here. I feel like the writing is not great, and the music, though fun and enjoyable, makes no damn sense in the context of anything in the movie. They constantly center Bowie's crotch in the middle of the screen, purposely drawing attention to it, and the whole him falling in love with a 16-year-old girl ball dance scene made me feel gross. I didn't really grow up with this film and don't have any nostalgia for it. Most of the memories of this film were being terrified of the creatures as a child. I also don't hate it, though the puppet work is fun and the designs and sets are super cool and gorgeous. Bowie looks magical, and I love the diverse cast of the party members. This would make an amazing, fantastical turn-based RPG. Do it, cowards! Also, Sarah is a whiny twat and needs to be over herself. It's a fucking baby, and it no understands things. The baby is not purposely ruining your life, you toddler. This movie is apparently why Henson's career took a nosedive later in life and was a commercial failure. I don't think people are wrong for liking it, and it's definitely a product of its time, but I've enjoyed objectively worse films more. It just isn't for me. Sorry. I caved and just looked up lore from this game on my phone because honestly, I just can't sit through this absolute beast and devote the time needed to even beat the main campaign. This game does some incredible things and has so much customization, but it also shows its age, and the UI and the same systems that give you so much choice can also be the worst part of the game. Don't get me wrong, I get the gripes with newer Bethesda games, but I like the shorter runtime. I like having map markers and fast travel, and I like not having to shift through a literal chapter of book. A chapter of a book at each and every NPC to further my story progress. I won't say this is a bad game. Never will I say that, because it isn't true, even with the short time I spent with it. I can see the absolute magic and love here and how many hours someone could lose to it. Also, I could just download mods to quote-unquote fix any issue I have with it. And maybe I will someday. But the point of my list is to play through a game as it was made, flaws and all, as it was released to the public. Maybe one day I will come back to it and mod it to play more modern so I can experience the story myself. But even with console commands, it just feels like a slog through a swamp. If you like a beefy-ass RPG and don't mind some older mechanics, this is a monster of a game and will keep you busy for, well, as long as you really want, LOL. This game is a fucking gateway drug. I spent my time corralling elephants into empty rooms and beating up slavers. Also, I made a world where I just played God and shot people with lightning for giggles. This game is something else, and had an undeniable charm. I'm definitely looking forward to playing more of it. This will probably stay on my PC permanently as a good game to just de-stress playing. It's an adult regular show, and it's great. It's something of its own. So if you don't like regular show, it doesn't mean you won't like this. Also, love the references made to regular show. More. Give me more. Why the fuck do people think this game is amazing? The controls are ass, the materia fusion system is poorly executed, the story legit makes no sense half the time and feels like Final Fantasy VII fanfic, the graphics are incredible for the PSP, and it has some good music tracks, but as a whole, unless you just really want to play for the added bits of Final Fantasy VII lore, don't bother. The mission system gets real old real fast, they use other creatures in place of the creatures that are supposed to be in a lot of the areas, and Genesis is just a garbage character that the way he's presented. Like, fuck, man. I remember this game being so awesome, but the more I played, the more my brain was like, wait, I remember being bored as fuck a lot of the time. It's like Nomura, or whoever wrote this, had this idea of how the characters would be, and how they were fleshed out in his head, but those characters that we're expected to care about barely get any development. Zack, who you spend the whole game with, barely has any character, but at least he's aware of how little sense any of this shit around him makes. Look, it isn't horrible. It isn't a horrible game. I'd scale it a 7 out of 10. But I also feel like I remember Dirge of Cerberus being better than this. At least more fun to play. I hope I'm right. Okay, so. More sidebar. First off, Dirge of Cerberus is not a better game. It is absolutely atrocious. Dirge of Cerberus was made before this game, which I did not realize. Some of the weird shit that's in this game, and probably the inclusion of Genesis as well, is Dirge of Cerberus' fault. Dirge of Cerberus was written by a person that had never written anything for the Final Fantasy VII, compilation. Nothing in their universe. Completely original. There's some cool shit going on in Dirge of Cerberus. I will talk about it more when I go into further list videos, because I just recently beat it, maybe a month ago. But it's terrible, in my opinion. It is absolutely horrible. And a lot of the ideas were cool, so I wouldn't mind if they tried to incorporate parts of it into the compilation, or the remake, or to give it a remake that was a full remake from the ground up, that added more story shit, or made the game longer or more interesting or whatever. I wouldn't mind the same with Crisis Core, just to make shit flow better, because now it's not like everything's made in hindsight. You could actually connect shit better, and there's not all these weird breadcrumb trails that seem to attract the nastiest rats possible. But a very helpful Tumblr user actually told me about who the writer for most of the Final Fantasy VII compilation stuff was. It is also, I believe, the same person that wrote the 2 books. The book that is can't think of the right word, a bundle of short stories on the way to a smile, which takes place between Final Fantasy VII and Advent Children, and the sequel book slash, it's not necessarily a sequel, but it is in timeline wise. What the fuck was it called? The Kids Are Alright, a Turk's Side Story, which is a really good book. But the guy that wrote those also did the story writing, I believe, for most of the Final Fantasy compilation. Because I say that Crisis Core's story was poorly written, but I think the biggest issue I had was just all of the included Genesis garbage and stuff that it's technically it doesn't shit on the established lore, but it's just confusing and convoluted and doesn't need to be here. And from things that I've heard, the way it was described was because Homeboy added all of the bullshit that was in Dirge of Cerberus, the guy that does the writing for Final Fantasy VII compilation stuff kind of had to just work around it, so he did the best that he could. Oh, that's great. My dumbass missed a post in here again. No, I didn't. Oh, it just didn't load for some reason, or I flipped too quickly. My bad. Give me a second. I have the fondest memories of this game from my childhood, and after completing the campaigns and fumbling around in custom AI matches to get a bunch of achievements because I hate myself sometimes, I can say that those feelings are mostly still fond. The facelift this game received is incredible and follows the original art style to a T. Always love the music and sound effects. They bring back so much nostalgia. My minor complaints have to do with everyone looking like white dude across all races and units that visually don't make sense. Sense over different civilizations. But for what this is, they did a good job at the time this originally came out. I love the new voiceovers for all the story stuff, and I love the little history tab that explains things a bit more accurately than the game portrays them. I will say this one doesn't hold my attention as much as some of the more fictitious RTS games, but it's always fun to toss your little villagers around, and when you get bored of the monotony, you can use steroids to make them clear forest in seconds. Sometimes the missions can feel really samey, and other than building designs, you're gonna have the same troop visuals across all civilizations. If you really like RTS games, I'd say try this one if you haven't. It's worth that price. But if you have no memories of this game and want something more fantastical, you're a casual player, this one may not be the one for you. Also, if you haven't used it, get you some priests and type Hoyo Hoyo. Well, that was certainly a few fun hours to spend. For the price, I'd definitely say it's worth it, issues and all. It has a clicker sandbox vibe that is nice, but I'd like something to actually do beyond what's here. Again though, perfect for its price, and I love the art style. My biggest complaint that seems to be a complaint with a lot of people with this game is the RNG in this game sucks. Like, the game is heavily RNG based with the way that like tiles for placement come up, which can severely fuck you. There's kind of a story here, but there also isn't. It's just more fun to like waste a couple hours on. If you really enjoy it, it's awesome because it's a cheap game, but there's not much here beyond the face value and the little fun you'll get for a few hours, in my opinion. The amount you are expected to suspend your own disbelief watching this movie is appalling. The source material and the origination of things in the book and this movie are real problematic. The creator of this tale is also the creator of Scientology. Those things said, I'd be lying if I said I hated it. It's goofy, ridiculous, filled with holes, and makes almost no sense at times, but it was a fun ride with not all that horrible CGI. I can see work was put into it. Whether that was all good work at times, I can't say, but work was put into it. I really, really, really enjoyed this book. I had read it once before in school, and I remember it having 2 sequels at that point. One dealt with the boy not being rescued and having to try to live out winter, and the other had to do with someone from the U.S. government coming to him and asking him to teach their soldiers how to survive in the wilderness. Now, it has 2 more sequels, and the winter book is the canon second book. After looking up a little bit of information on the author, it makes some of the things in the book make a little more sense, things that seem a little off to me, who is more technologically inclined. I have no issue with nature, and I think that all people should have some understanding of survival skills and respect nature for what it is, but I also don't think that there's something inherently wrong enjoying technology so much. The problem is when you become too reliant on it, because at any moment it could crap out. Also, it's important to understand that even things as simple as a spoon or a bowl are a form of technology. The book seems to be a way for the author to tell parts of his own life story in a thrilling, believable coming-of-age tale. From what I researched, he lives a pretty simple life, enjoys nature, does what he loves, and respects nature. If I ever met the man, I think there'd be a lot that we didn't agree on, but I'd also respect his feelings. At least he lives life how he wants to, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that's going to be it for this one. The next one should be the last one for a while because it'll be the end of this year 3 of doing the big list, which just ended actually last September. So a lot of the stuff coming up is very recent stuff that I finished that's fresh on my mind from completing it. Ooh, excuse me. Little gassy. I guess the milk from my cereal has decided to bubble up. Thank you guys for watching. Love you guys. Be safe out there. Remember to wash your hands, wear your masks, and don't be an asshole. Bye-bye.